Hi, I'm gonna read some book. I scanned the tortured lines in the dead man's diary. Here we were, the skeleton and I, two single young men. In our hearts, we both worshipped the same female image, the only woman we had ever known, Mother. We had remained children. I saw my mother smile, her long flowing hair. A member of a familiar mixture of perfume and sweat overwhelmed me. I slipped the diary in among the clothes and rolled the bamboo flute up in a handkerchief. Gently, I placed it in my own knapsack. I tied the dead man's sock onto mine with a nylon string. The machine gun and the cartridges shone on the plastic sheet. I took them too. Who was the bastard who invented this thing? I thought to myself. The machine gun was as heavy as the granite mortars we used to pound food. They said it only weighed 15 pounds, but I felt like 100. And that wasn't counting the ammunition. I would never make it, not even by sucking ginseng root for strength. I hurled the machine gun into the bushes at my right and kicked the cartridges boxes aside to the left. In a few months, the colocaceae would swallow them all. A new forest of flowers would bloom over the decomposing remains, suckled on the blood and rotting flesh. They would cover the earth again with their pale icy blooms, echoing the wind of death through the valley. Goodbye, brother. I gazed at the glistening skeleton in the hammock, its straight, flawless teeth. The skull no longer grinded at me. It looked almost tearful. Resign yourself. That's life in the end. We will all be separated. I'll bring your belongings to your mother. If by some misfortune she has left us, I'll visit her tomb, light incense, and read your diary to her from beginning to end. I won't skip a word. At least our soul will taste this sweetness, this solace. We sons are good for nothing. We make them suffer in this life and then console their ghosts. I put my cap back on and left. I walked well into the afternoon. When I left the valley, I stumbled into a vast region of rolling hills covered with brambles and juniper trees. The wind from levels below here, dry, searing, sucking the body of all sweat and saliva. There wasn't a drop of water, not a grain of rice. I walked on, staggering through low drifts of clouds. I lost count of the hills I climbed. As the sun dipped behind a rest of hills, I could just make out the A shape of a bunker. I didn't even have the strength left to shout out. I ran toward its mouth and collapsed there. Uncle Boy Doy, uncle! A tiny voice echoed over and over in my ear, soft, tender, lapping at me, washing over me like ocean waves. Wake up, uncle. The voice was insistent, quivering, as if on the edge of tears. I struggled painfully to open my eyes. All I wanted was to sleep. Uncle, oh, uncle. I tried to move, and as I shifted, I opened my eyes a crack. The light was blinding. I closed them. A few seconds later, I slowly opened them. Two tiny, glittering black eyes watched me attentively. A patch of sun illuminated a cheek, one fine hair. Only after a long time could I make out a face, small, alert, a bit square. Seeing me completely awake, conscious, the little girl said, "You frightened me." Her voice still quivered. I wanted to ask her questions, but my tongue stuck to my jaw. Somehow she sensed this. I've been trying to wake you up since noon. My voice went hoarse. You were as still as a dead person. The worst is over now. I want you to eat some porridge. She climbed down from the wooden plank where I lay, scampered toward the inside of the shelter, and reappeared, clutching a chipped bowl and an old spoon without a handle. A thin curl of steam rose from the bowl. She climbed back up on the plank, and perched the bowl by my side. Propping my head against her thigh, she fed me spoonful after spoonful of thick, warm porridge. It smelled of bran and young paddy rice. The grains were marrowy, only half open. They crunched between my teeth, scraping my swallowed throat as they went down. I remembered my mother saying, "White rice is like mother's milk." I forced myself to swallow. "One more try, uncle. One more try." The little girl seemed to sense my confusion. She consoled me. "You're very, very sick. With such a high fever, your saliva is as thin as river water. But you have to eat to get well. This porridge is made from young paddy. It's very good for you." My shrunken stomach must have already digested some of the porridge. I suddenly felt more lucid. The little girl noticed that I had started to swallow more easily, and she fed me more rapidly. "Eat a few more spoonfuls. Keep trying. It's almost finished." I could hear her scraping the bowl with her spoon. It must have been almost clean. The little girl wiped my mouth with the hem of her shirt, then climbed down, carrying away the bowl and spoon. I heard her rummaging at the back of the shelter. In the time it takes to roll a cigarette, she was back. Thick steam rose from an earthenware bowl in her hands. "Uncle, try to drink this bowl of honeyed tea before you go to sleep. Tip your head back, just like that. Yes." The drink exhaled the earthy smell of honey and leaves. People here gathered herbs along the hillside as a substitute for tea. We soldiers used the same leaves for camouflage. The hot, sugary drink speared a feeling of tenderness through me. I closed my eyes, felt the softness of her thigh under my head. My clothes had a fresh, dry scent of sun, even from beneath my closed lids. I could sense her eyes, attentive, anxious, following the movement of the spoon. I imagined she must have looked like a young mother, my second mother. "That's right. Sleep now." She swiped my mouth with the hem of her shirt and then, climbing over my legs, pulled out a cover made of parachute cloth. "Sleep well. Don't roll around or the covers will slip off. Grandfather is very busy these days. He doesn't have time to clean up the shelter." She covered me with the parachute cloth, tucking it carefully around my feet under my stomach. I couldn't speak yet. She touched my forehead, then slipped down into the underground part of the shelter. Now she was in full view. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She wore flowered trousers patched with a swab of black cloth. Her shirt was a faded blue, with her coppery and fine lips. Skin and fine lips. She looked like a young mother in miniature. She seemed revealed that she had nursed me back to her health. She pulled a shadow mirror from her pocket and began to brush her hair with a comb made from aircraft metal. I watched her tiny hand flick back and forth, her girlish gestures. The tips of her inky black hair turned up, slightly rendered by the sun, reminding me of one of the cherubs around the Virgin Mary. A church bell chimed somewhere in the distance. The old priests wore a flowing grey tunic, The day before my little brother was born, he took us to a monastery where the Father Superior was a friend of my maternal grandparents. Once, when we had needed to borrow money, he helped us contact them in Hanoi. That was a long time ago. I still remember the pretty face of the child god, so like the face of the child who had just saved me. Images past and present jumbled inside my head. I lost consciousness.